and I have to learn how to differentiate between like when like my actual human instincts are trying to save me versus like you're frightened and that voice is very loud. It's hard to ignore. 25, like, where's your husband?
Where is he? Yep.
How was I gonna get a husband to actually go on a
Go
walk
outside
and touch some grass?
Yep.
Yes. People are always like, a woman's instincts, like you just know when you know. For me, I do not be knowing. I'll meet someone, I'm like, okay, girl, you seem real cool, real normal.
Real normal.
You have to radically accept yourself in a way that defies all expectations.
Welcome to another episode of Choma Learns, in which we discuss the intersection of who we are, what we do, and the lessons that we've learned along the way. My name is Choma, and joining me today is Amarachi. Amarachi is a Nigerian American born in Queens, New York, and raised in New England. She is currently a second year master's student and has earned her bachelor's degree in Allied Health Sciences. She works as a public health educator and researcher with academic interests in chronic disease epidemiology. Her research focuses on community nutrition, lifestyle medicine, and chronic disease risk and prevention, with a particular focus on gastrointestinal cancers and type 2 diabetes. She's deeply passionate about community oriented public health education and is excited to be part of the next generation of creative thinkers. Outside of work and school, she's enjoying trying new restaurants, reading, exercising, and going to the movie theater.
Heavy on the movie theaters. I have seen 7 movies this month. I have another movie lined up tomorrow, another one on Sunday. I love the movie theaters. That AMC subscription, $25 a month, I put it to use every single week. It's $25. Think about that. A movie ticket itself is like $15. If you see 2 movies in a month, that's $30. For $25, you can see 4 movies in 1 week. That's a crazy deal. And there's no
Wait, so you can watch however many movies
Yeah,
you
how-
want
yeah.
for that subscription?
in 1 week, up to 4 though.
I might consider that.
Yeah,
I might consider that.
100% recommend.
We have our first intro question, which we ask every single one of our guests,
Okay.
which is, if this season of life is a classroom, what is it teaching you about being human?
If this season of my life was a class, I would say it's probably gym class. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Mm,
But in terms of what I'm learning, would be differentiating between my instincts and anxiety. That's a big problem that I have. Like, people are always like, a woman's instincts, like you just know when you know. For me, I do not be knowing. Like, I do not be knowing. Like, it's actually anxiety talking right now. Like, that's not a real concern at the moment. Like, that sudden urgency is actually anxiety. And I have to learn how to differentiate between like when like my actual human instincts are trying to save me versus like you're frightened and that voice is very loud. It's harder to ignore. It's a struggle. So I would say gym class, physical education. But
I think it's interesting that the analogy you gave is like gym class.
yeah, because gym class is one of those classes where like it seems like it should be easy. Like you think like you just show up there, you play sports. Like when I took gym in high school, I got 100 every single semester. But it actually wasn't that easy. Like you actually have to play the sports.
That is
Yeah,
true.
and there's effort that has
is
to be put into
true.
it, and you can actually see your progression in all the classes. I remember when I first began gym class in like 6th grade, I was nervous to play in front of my classmates. So like we would play volleyball, and like the balls would come near me, and I would deliberately dodge them. I'd be like, "Ah, guys, I can't play volleyball. I'm actually really bad." Actually, secretly inside, I'm very competitive. I do want to play for real, but I was just nervous. So it's like it took numerous instances of like my classmates getting irritated at me for not hitting the ball when I was supposed to, for me to be like, power up and then actually lock in and like start playing the game well. And I think that translates well to how I live my actual life. Like I get it wrong quite often, and then at some point it clicks.
I feel like most people, myself included, I think can relate to that in terms of this idea of getting it wrong. But I think in a society that we live in, it's not the norm for us to like talk about that. It's not the norm to say like I'm learning in this, I'm growing, or I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
Ooh, this reminds me of, this was in one of my psych classes in college, and one of the professors, he's from China, and he was expressing the cultural difference. I forgot exactly what he said. I don't want to butcher his take, but essentially he thought it was interesting when it comes to American society the expectation that if you ask someone a question, you're always supposed to have an answer. Like
Yeah.
everyone is expected to always have an opinion. Like, for example, in class discussions, the professor asks us a question, you're expected to have a profound answer. Whereas he felt like growing up in China, that wasn't quite his experience, that students were expected to necessarily be opinionated on like everything.
Everything, yeah.
And he was just kind of, it was that really stuck with me in terms of the lens in which we look at life. This expectation to always know, this pressure to always know, to always have an
Yeah.
answer, to always say, this is what I have to say, and like what harm does that cause
Yeah.
sometimes.
Especially in today's day and age. I was talking about this with my brother the other day where
Mhm,
I feel like, yes, it's really important to honor everybody's thoughts on things, but
mhm,
there does get to a point where you can't make an educated opinion about that topic because you just don't know enough about it. And I feel
mm,
like that's something that I have gotten better at saying, I don't know. I don't know.
mm,
I don't know enough about this. I might have a preliminary opinion based off of like what I've heard, but it's not
mm,
strong enough to compete with an expert's thoughts or honestly with
mm,
anyone else's thoughts because they have a much more fleshed out opinion based off of like their actual lived experience. Like
mhm,
I had a guest speaker come to my class the other day. He was
mhm,
someone who struggled with drug addiction for a long time, but now he's
mm,
a program director for a center that works with sex workers, with people who struggle with
mm,
addiction, et
mm,
cetera, et cetera. And when he was there, I remember thinking to myself, I was like, I don't know what to contribute to this conversation because I've never
mm,
struggled with addiction and I also don't know
mm,
anyone who does.
mhm,
But then I was telling my professor that, like, oh, I don't know what to contribute to this conversation. Like, what should I really say, beyond like, I empathize with your experience.
mm,
And so she was telling me, so like, you've never had an experience in your life as a person where you feel like your health or your life interests were not taken seriously because of like your social background. And I was like, oh, I was like, you know what? When you put it like that, I was like, you have a good point. But at the
mm,
same time, I would never want to make my voice louder than his
mm,
because he's going off of like what he's seen with his own two eyes. I'm going off of
mm,
like a secondary experience that I can relate to what you're saying, but
mhm,
ultimately it's not one to one with your own experience. And I think
mhm,
that's a big thing. Like I think it's okay to say like I've experienced something similar. I understand to some extent, but I want to
mhm,
hear more from you about it because I just don't know. And I think
mm,
more people should get comfortable saying, I don't have an opinion on this because I don't
mm.
know.
I agree. So that brings us to our learning curve segment.
Okay.
The very first scenario says, I think you're going to like this one.
Ooh.
I am the first daughter in a Guinean household. I'm the one everyone depends on emotionally and financially. Lately, I've been feeling really drained, but anytime I try to step out or say no, I feel guilt, like I'm failing my family or being ungrateful. I don't feel like I know who I am outside of family responsibility. How do you start holding on to your boundaries without feeling like you're hurting the people you love?
This one is really, really tough. Like, I'm not Guinean, but like I'm Nigerian American. And
Mhm,
even though I live in the United States, we still have the same dynamic of like the eldest daughter plays a parental role in the
mhm,
family, whether that's contributing financially or
mhm,
just child rearing and just like project management for the household.
mhm,
That's something that I really struggled with a lot too. And it took me a really long time to be able to kind of like break out of like that primary responsibility person. Like, unfortunately, I still kind of am like the captain of the ship, like head of the household, even though I'm just a girl. But it's actually tough to break out of it. Obviously, in my culture, obedience and kind of like orderliness is like a really, really, really big deal. So it
mhm,
can feel like you're being like blasphemous by
mhm,
creating chaos. But honestly, you will not get peace until you fight for it. And it doesn't even have to
mm,
be mean. It doesn't have to be me like, never ask me again for this. But like communicating people with what you can and cannot do. Like, you have to literally definitively say, here's what I
mm,
can do for you, here's what I can't do for you. It's
mm,
okay for people to flounder and struggle. Like they will actually be fine. That laundry, they can do it. Like so
mm,
it's definitely tougher when it comes to the money aspect of it because that one
mm,
is like a legitimate concern. Like they may
mm,
not have what they need financially. But when it
mm,
comes to like household chores, household responsibilities, and an over reliance on your services,
mm.
be okay with not being good at that job.
So we have our next learning curve. This person says, "Hi, Choma. I'm in my early 20s and I just don't feel interested in dating right now. And I've never been in a relationship. I'm really focused on myself, my goals, my growth, my peace. But everyone around me is in relationships or talking about marriage. And it honestly makes me feel out of place. Sometimes I start overthinking, like, am I avoiding something? Is this normal? Or am I going to wake up one day and regret not putting myself out there earlier? How does one get comfortable with not centering romance when it feels like everyone else is doing it?
This is a really good question because I actually have the exact same question. I'm wondering the same thing myself. Like, I'm 25 years old and I don't have any significant dating experience. And a lot of that stems from the fact that when I was a kid, my parents just did not allow that. Like, it was very much like, why are you talking to a boy? Why are you looking at a boy? So it was like,
Let's talk about that.
yes. And then by the time you're 25, they're like, where's your husband? Wait,
Where is he? Yep.
how was I going to get a husband? And so I definitely know what it's like to be that person where you don't have the dating experience that your friends do, but
Mm,
everyone is interested in marriage, especially Nigerian or just African girls. That most of my friends are African,
mhm,
and they are generally primarily interested in marriage or at the very least dating and
mhm,
relationships, generally heterosexual ones. And it's definitely tough to kind of be on the outside of that.
mm,
How I have kind of made my life a bit easier in that regard is by kind of being like quote unquote the advice friend. I didn't take on that
mm.
role deliberately. It kind of just fell into my lap. But I realized that like by hearing other people's experiences, it's like low key preparing me for the future. Like my friend would be like, "Oh, my
Mm.
man did this," and I'd be like, "Okay, let me just throw that away in the filing cabinet number 3, so I know that if that ever happens to me, I'm not gonna do what you just did." You know what I mean? So like I give
Is it?
advice.
I'm not
No,
crazy.
like I'm your battles are your battles, but they won't be mine.
Mhm.
But like so like it's really one of
I
those
love
things.
that. Hold on. Your battles are your battles. I love
Yes,
that.
I
But they
learn
won't be
from other
mine.
people's lessons. I don't have to experience it myself to know it's bad. Like, oh, that's
Mhm.
real tough.
Mm,
You're a trooper. You won't see me there with you.
mm,
This is I'm kind of navigating this too, so it was like definitely a tough spot to be in.
mhm,
But you really just have to get comfortable with yourself, who you
mm,
are, and I think that's the advice that everyone gives you. Like it's so generic, but
mm,
unfortunately, it is true and it really does work. You just
mm,
have to keep trudging along with the life that you have and accept what it has given you and also what it
mm,
has not given you. But
mm,
in order to kind of navigate those interactions with your friends who have the things that you might want is
mm,
a share in their joy, but you can also share in their sadness. Maybe their relationship ended or their partner and them broke up for whatever reason. Like you can stand there with them, and you being kind of a neutral party in that sense, like you're not in the relationship, might make you a better friend for it. So I think like there's
mm,
a lot of downsides to it for sure, but it doesn't have to be like a miserable, unhappy experience. You can stand with your friends when they experience happiness in their relationships, but
mm,
also if they experience sadness.
mm.
And you can be the advice friend if that's something you're comfortable with.
Yeah, to add on, I think another part of this question that I wanted to get your take on is the person is almost expressing a lack of desire,
Yeah,
but feeling like they're supposed to have that desire
I
because
feel
that's
the
the
same
social
way. I
norm.
also feel just a tremendous lack of desire. I feel bad for thinking that because it's not that I don't like men, it's just I don't see the purpose in it right now. Like I'm just like,
Mm,
okay, like
I'm
anyways,
chilling.
yeah. And I feel like you can't apologize for that. There's nothing you can do about
Mm,
that. Like I think trying to explain to other people why you don't like certain things or why you don't care about certain things what other people do is a losing battle. You care about what you care
mm,
about and then you just have to keep it pushing. So I don't know if that fully answers the question because I'm kind of
mm,
navigating the same problem myself. But that's
mm,
kind of how I look at it. Like I don't give the topic any more attention than it deserves. So if
mm,
someone asks me about mine, my answers are pretty brief. Like,
mm,
girl, I'm going to school.
mm.
I'm fighting for my life. Those are my biggest priorities right now.
I'm fighting for my
Like
life.
so like I don't feed the topics too much. Like, sometimes I'll meet people and
Mm,
like you can tell that what they want to talk to you about is romance. Not even just friends
mm,
specifically, but just like people that you meet. And they
mm,
want to talk with you about romance like a lot.
mm,
I end it real quick. You
mm,
lost me. But what about you though? You know what I
mm.
mean? So that's how I kind of go through it. It's definitely awkward. It's really like one time, like literally like last week, someone asked me point blank, "Where's your man?" I said, "Oh, what happened to hello? How are
Was it
you?"
a man on the street that asked that? Because that
No,
sounds like a very a man on the
it was
street.
actually a woman. I was just like, "Oh, that's not." I thought we were sisters, but it's cool. It's cool. It's not cool. I was like, "All right, girl."
There's a saying that in terms of the patriarchy, how like women sometimes are the biggest
Drivers, yeah,
reinforcers of
yep.
it
Even
and
though they
keeping you in line.
yeah, they're disadvantaged by it, but they still enforce the rules. and
Mhm.
expectations. And it's definitely really unfortunate. It's an awkward situation. I don't blame her for feeling the way that she feels. Like, you feel like these things should be the center of your world, but they don't have to be. You
Mm.
can enrich your life in other ways. The tough part is
Mm.
making friendships with other women who are also equally enriched by things other than just having a man,
Mm.
which, not gonna lie, is quite difficult to find.
Mm.
So I really empathize with her. I wish I had better advice, but
Mm.
honestly, just taking it day by day and not giving too much energy to conversation that you don't want to have.
In terms of not having, in terms of finding women who are not
Oh yeah,
very like
male centered.
my man
Yeah.
centered. I've been, I think lately I've been meeting a couple of women, a couple of my friends that I've been since I came back to the city,
Mhm.
that I think it's been really nice. Like, I love women who their life is like centered around
Selves.
themselves,
Yeah.
and then there are other parts of like, I'm this and I'm this and I'm this and this is
Yeah.
one part of my life. It's a significant, beautiful part of my life, but it's
Yeah.
not
It's not who I
my
am.
life. I have my drives and my goals, and the goals doesn't have to be necessarily like career oriented, but just a
Just
sense of like
anything.
sense of
Purpose.
self.
Yeah.
Exactly, a sense of purpose, a sense of drive. I've been meeting a couple of people like that, and it's just been like the best thing because I'm just like, girl,
Yes.
I see you.
I need to find more of that. I really like all of my friends. Like, actually, let me just dial back. It's okay to desire romantic companionship. You should
Mhm.
never feel bad about that. We
Mhm.
are human beings. We're social creatures. We were meant to live in community, and oftentimes that community will involve a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, wife, etc., etc.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong at all with desiring romantic companionship. It's
Mhm.
when that desire overrides your dignity,
Everything
your
else.
self-respect, and your ability to maintain quality relationships with other women, then it becomes a problem. So I don't have a
Mhm.
problem with a friend who, like for example, one of my friends, her and her boyfriend, almost fiance, they're like 2 minutes away. Like, girl, y'all gonna get engaged soon. But her
It's a
boyfriend,
manifested,
yeah, it's
manifested.
like girl, we know. But like, her boyfriend is a big part of her life. They don't
Mm.
live together, but they've been together for a long time. He's a big part of her life, and I like him as an individual. He's really really
Mm.
nice, and I understand why they like each other. They're very very
They make
well yes,
sense.
they're well
Yeah.
suited together. But she makes times for her other friends. She hangs out with
Mm.
her other friends, me included. But
Mm.
she knows what a girl's night is for. Like,
Mm.
not like, can I bring my man? You're not serious.
You're
You're
not
not serious.
serious.
Like, she knows what a girl's night is for. And that's what I like. Like, you
Mm.
can, I don't want to say compartmentalize, but you can structure your life to allow for meaningful relationships with other people. And that
Mm.
should not upend your ability to have a man or to have friends. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Mhm.
I find that a lot of the times that, like, for me, what's so difficult about finding friends is, like, I'll meet someone. I'm like, okay, girl, you seem real cool, real normal.
Mhm.
After,
Real
yeah,
normal.
I'm like, I think everything's all fun and games, like it's all cute or whatever. A week later, she find a man, you never hear from her again. Oh,
Mm.
what's that about,
What's
sister?
that about? That's
It's so
funny.
scary to me. Like, that happens. I don't want to say it happens to me uber frequently, but it's not infrequent either, and it's kind of disappointing. And given that a lot of the times I tend to befriend women who are of the same or similar cultural background, like most of my
Mm.
friends are West African. Not all of them. I have
Mm.
like some Latino friends, one Asian friend, and like one or two Black American friends. But the
Mhm.
majority of my friends are from a similar cultural background, which
Mhm.
overemphasizes the importance of getting married. And so I
Mm.
understand where that desire comes from. It's really just acculturation. But the
Mm.
problem is that, like, it makes it harder to build meaningful relationships, especially not,
Mm.
like, none of my friends have kids, but once kids come into the picture,
It becomes
it
even
changes.
more,
It changes
yeah.
a lot. So I've tried to find ways to enrich my life outside of friendship as well. But I
I've
also,
never,
yes,
girl, talk more about that.
yes,
That's I don't think something that I hear, because
yes,
typically the idea is like to enrich your life through
yeah,
friendships
which
as
is really
opposed
important.
to.
Yeah, I think it's really important to enrich your life through friendships as well. But I
Mhm.
also think it's important to enrich your life by just existing in ways that are pleasing to you. So for me,
Mm.
when I was a kid, I realized that I was just like a very active child. I like to play sports. I like
Mhm.
to do art. I like to just play. Like,
Mm.
genuinely, I just enjoy the act of playing.
Mm.
And I realized that as I got older, I found it a lot more difficult to do things by myself because I was so
Mm,
used to always having a friend there to do, like, I didn't have a partner to do it with, but I
mm,
always had a friend like, hey girl, you want to go to the mall, you want to go see a movie, da da da. And then I realized that like I was overly dependent on my friends for every moment of socialization that I wanted or entertainment that I wanted,
I've been
stimulation.
there. I've been
Yes.
there.
And then I would be very, very depressed when people couldn't do things or when they would
Mm,
disappoint you in ways, either
mm,
because of just natural life occurrences or because they just weren't a good friend.
mm,
And then that was where my movie theater interest came into the picture because it was like
mm.
one of like the safe things to do by yourself. Like you could go to a theater and sit in a dark theater and watch the movie by yourself. You don't really need anyone to be there with you.
That is true. And there's
Yes.
less judgment
Yeah.
around that versus like eating at a
Exactly.
restaurant.
So that was like the first thing that I did. And I was like, wait, this is actually really fun. So I made a
Mm,
whole list of all the movies that I want to see for the year. And I committed
mm,
to watching all of them. And then once 2019 passed, that was the first year that I became like really, really interested in movies.
mm,
It was like, okay, well, I can graduate to going out to eat by myself. And then I
mm,
realized no one cares that you're alone. Bring a book, bring a
mm,
movie, and you might really enjoy yourself. You might really
mm.
enjoy having this dinner by yourself. And then after that, I was like, okay, if I can do this, I can go to a concert by myself. And I
Oh,
did.
I go to, yeah.
Yeah. And I do that all the time now. And now all these things seem so normal to me. Like I wouldn't even think twice about like what I like, yeah, of course I'm gonna go by myself. But at the time it was
Hmm.
a really, really, really big hurdle. Yes, it
Milestone.
felt like I was like
Hmm.
conquering the world. Like but ultimately it was just like enriching my life in ways that mean something to me. And then I
Mm.
began to play a lot of sports. So now I do a lot of jump roping, I do strongman, which is like a weightlifting thing.
Have you seen the videos?
Yes, like, and all of those things are ways that I enrich my life that don't
Mm,
require other people to be there. I invite my
mm,
friends to do those things with me too. Of course, a lot of my friends do strongman as well. Sometimes my friend go on hikes or walks with me, but I'm
mhm,
perfectly comfortable doing all of those things on my own. And I
mm,
like how I feel afterwards. I really enjoy jump roping. I really enjoy hiking. I love a
mm,
long walk. Yes, I
mm,
will go and deadlift that weight. Like I'm more than happy to do it. And if you want to
mm,
come along too, girl, that's wonderful. But if you
mm.
can't come or you don't want to come,
The world
the
doesn't
world
end.
doesn't end.
I think that's
Exactly.
what it is in terms
Exactly.
of that connection between romance and friendship and or just this idea of, and again, everything you said of like people need people. And I often say the goal is to have all kinds of love, to have the
Yes.
love of romantic partnership if that's something you desire,
Yep.
the love of friends, the love of family, the love of self. Why
Yes.
not have all the love as opposed
Yes.
to just one of the
You
love?
have to diversify your opportunities for emotional connection. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of men struggle with this as well. I was talking about this to my brother. I went to California for a week to go visit him. My brother lives in California.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one day when I was like, why are you inside? And he was like, oh, I don't have anyone to go anywhere with. I was like, okay, so like, why are you inside though? Like that should
Mm,
not stifle you from being able to go outside and enjoy the beach. 'Cause I had talked about going to the beach with him that day,
mhm,
and I realized like he is where I was so long ago, where
mm,
his stimulation and satisfaction is dependent on the presence of another person, which
mm,
is okay to an extent. I'm not saying that's at the end of the world, but
mhm,
ideally, you should be able to entertain yourself to some degree beyond
mm.
just consuming media as well, like beyond just
Social
watching,
media.
yeah,
Yep,
watching
yep.
television, scrolling through social media. Now,
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of television. I watch a lot of movies, but there is a point where there is too much screen time, and you do have to just actually go on a
Go
walk
outside.
and touch
Touch
some
grass.
grass.
Yep.
Yes. And so like I was telling him this, like I was like, I really think it would be really good for you to like, just find ways to enrich your life, even
Mhm,
when your friends can't come or they don't want to come. So we
mhm,
ended up going on a hike, and I was like, you're good at the hike. You're walking even faster than me. Try
mm,
doing this again by yourself. You
mm.
just might enjoy it. And he was like, yeah, this is really fun. I'm gonna do it again. I was like, period. And I was like, whoa, another one, another soldier. Like
Another
yes, I'm
surgery.
trying to get everybody on this wave. Like, girl, I promise you, you can
Mm,
do it by yourself. You can go to a restaurant on your own. You can
mhm,
go to that concert by yourself. And a
mhm.
lot of the times, while you're in line at the concert or in
You
the,
meet
you meet
people
people who will
who
chat
are
with you.
aligned. Yes,
Exactly. Like,
yes. So this person says, "Hi, my parents are from the Caribbean, and I've been noticing some health issues in my family, things like diet, stress, and possible chronic conditions. But whenever I try to bring it up, it gets brushed off or turned into a joke. I don't want to come off as disrespectful or knowing it all, but I'm genuinely worried. How do you get people to take their health seriously without overstepping?"
this one is really, really tough because you kind of have to respect other people's autonomy, but you have a
Mm,
legitimate reason to be concerned. about that. I can say this as someone who used to have a very, very unhealthy lifestyle. Just
Mm,
for the record, I have PCOS, and if you know what PCOS is, it's oftentimes spoken as a reproductive issue, but it really is more of a metabolic concern. There's
mm,
a really strong relationship between PCOS and diabetes, as
mhm,
well as like fatty liver disease, so, cancer, so on and so forth.
mhm,
And when I was like in the midst of like my most serious struggles with PCOS, I gained a lot of weight. I had a lot of really, really, really strong cravings for
mm,
food that is not necessarily high in nutritious value,
mm,
and I didn't exercise that often. I had a pretty sedentary lifestyle,
mm,
and there was nothing that anyone else could have said to me that would have made
mm,
me change. It just wasn't enough. Even going to the doctor and having them say, "Oh, you have PCOS, you have prediabetes, you have XYZ health conditions, like you need to care about your body, like take care of yourself." It didn't
mm,
do anything. It literally
mm,
had no effect on me at all. It was a year later when I got sick of and tired of being sick and tired. I was like, okay, I'm
mm,
starting to get annoyed by this. People will only change when they are able and ready to. Like, there's
mm,
unfortunately just nothing that you can say to your parents, friends, or whatever that's going to make them care, especially if that criticism is or commentary is delivered in the form of criticism. Like
mm,
I feel like if if someone's like, "Hey, you've gained 100 pounds," that doesn't feel like care to me. I'm not saying that that's what
mm,
this particular girl has done in this case. I'm not exactly sure how she approaches it,
mm,
but unfortunately, you do have to let people do what they do. That
mm,
said, you can role model healthy behaviors and frame it in a way that is very positive. And that's what I like to do.
mm,
I don't like really talking about food as like good or bad or healthy or unhealthy. I talk about food in terms of like what it does for your body. I know
I
that
love that.
yes, I know that these particular foods have these nutrients that are important to me.
Mm,
And while yes, I will still have a Twinkie. I had Chick-fil-A yesterday, never cared. I understand that it's important to get a healthy amount of fiber, protein, and
mm,
carbohydrates into my diet, and I do
mm,
that by diversifying my meals. You can
mm,
talk about the importance of a healthy diet without doing so in a way that comes as like, you know, looking down on someone or making someone else
mm,
feel bad about their food habits. So let's say
mm,
you're talking to someone who diet is primarily fast food or just like hypercaloric food, so on and so forth, but you understand it is important to eat fresh fruits and vegetables and to
mhm,
get a healthy dose of protein and fiber into your diet. You can't make that person eat what you want them to eat, but you can
mm,
offer them some of your food. You can offer to cook for them. Hey girl, I'm making a salad for lunch. Do you want some? Those are
mm,
options. Like, my mom has a stressful job. My mom is a travel nurse. Her job is
mhm,
stressful, and it's harder for her to eat healthy because she's just so busy. If I
mm,
make food, I'll give you some. You can have some of
mhm,
what I had because I know, first of all, it's nutritious, but
mm,
also it's good and also saves you some time. In terms
mm,
of trying to get them to have a more physically active lifestyle, you can offer to take them with you. I take my mom to a lot of my dance classes, to some of
mhm,
my swim lessons. I brought my sister with me to my
mm,
swim lessons, and it may not make her do it for the rest of her life, but you've given her a positive experience for the one
mm,
time. And who knows, 2 years from now, she may look back and say, I actually really enjoyed hiking with my sister or with my daughter. I might try that
mm,
myself. And it's those
mm,
little moments of change that will
mm.
really, really do the most. But like trying to pressure people by saying, like, hey, you're not healthy, unfortunately, it
It
doesn't
doesn't
work.
work.
It just
That's
doesn't.
true.
It,
That's
and it,
true.
it's sad to say, but you have to let people make their own choices.
That is true. And even in the context of like therapy, people have to be like motivated to change in order
Yeah,
for the change to happen.
they want
If
to.
they're not, if you don't buy into the change yourself, if you cannot list, these are the reasons why I want to change, and this is why it's important to me, and these are like the stakes,
Yep,
for yourself, then
exactly.
it only goes so much. So I completely agree with that. I think something else to keep in mind is the fact that everyone is on their own journey. And I think what you said is really wonderful in terms of this idea of modeling the behavior.
Yeah,
So, giving examples, because then people have those things to come back to. And then when they're in a place where they feel ready to change,
exactly.
motivated to change, then they can then say they have so and so things that has been modeled for them.
Yes.
And I love what you said of like making the food and
Yeah.
like giving it away instead of saying like we all have to eat this one healthy thing.
Yeah.
It's more so I'm going to make the healthy thing
Thing. And if you
and
want some,
then
you can have some. I'm gonna make a smoothie. Like I love a smoothie. If you
mhm,
want some, I'll make you an extra cup. I love a rice bowl. Ooh.
mm,
Like my endocrinologist told me, 40% carb, 40% protein, 20% fiber. I love a rice bowl. Girl, do you
Mm.
want one too? Like, you can have some of my rice bowl. Like, I'm happy to share the meal with you. And I think also another piece of it
Mm.
as well, and I've had this conversation with many of my friends, is talking about your own body in a way that is not derogatory, especially in front of someone whose
Mm.
health you might think is being compromised. And I'll give you
Mm.
an example, right?
Mhm.
If you feel as though someone is like struggling with like high blood pressure, like they're eating foods that's going to make their blood pressure high, maybe
Mhm.
they're pre-diabetic, or you think they might be so on and so forth,
Mhm.
I think it's super important still to talk about your body
Mhm.
in ways that honors it, so as not to kind of stigmatize that other person as well, especially if their health
Mm.
has is reflected in their appearance. You know what I mean? Like, let's say
Mm.
they've gained a lot of weight, let's say like 100 pounds, so on and so forth, as a
Mhm.
result of having a diet that is high in hypercaloric foods, a sedentary
Mm.
lifestyle, so on and so forth. If
Mhm.
you're in front of that person, like, oh my God, I've gained 1,000 pounds, I can't believe I'm so fat now, is that really the best way to discuss how you might be feeling about your body in front of someone who
Mm.
you feel has a lifestyle that you may not, want? And
Mm.
also talking about exercise in a way that is appreciative of what it is. I feel like a lot of people talk about exercise like it's something that like a body modification tool. And it can be.
Mm.
You can use exercise to modify your body, but ultimately exercise is just gratitude for what you have the ability to do. You can run, you can
Mm.
walk, or even if you can't run or you can't walk, there's some level of physical ability that you have. Whatever
Mm.
that is, take advantage of it. And I
Mm.
think if we talk about it in those terms, that might give other
Mm.
people the space to change their own life. I think a lot of people, like, for them, exercise feels so intimidating because it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I've gone to the gym. Why haven't I lost 20 pounds? Well, slow
Mm.
down, Savannah. It's actually okay. Like, no, no, no. You can just go to the gym and move your body, and that's it. There doesn't have to
Mm.
be any expectations behind it. And I think
Mm.
a lot of the times people will watch like my Instagram videos and they see how I talk about exercise, and
Mhm.
that makes them want to do it too. Because I'm not
Mm.
fixated on like, okay, well, it's gonna be the thing that makes you lose all the weight that you gained. No,
Mm.
it can just be a way of getting your heart rate up,
Mhm.
sweating,
Mhm.
helps your mood, helps how you feel. Like, it can just be something that you do. It can just be a
Mm.
hobby.
Mm.
And sure, there are going to be health benefits from it. I'm not going to deny that. But it doesn't have to be centered around that concept. And I think when we
Mm.
model that behavior, yes, but also when we talk about it in those terms
Mm.
around the people that we want to make those lifestyle changes,
Mhm.
they might be better able to make those changes for themselves.
You said some really, really wonderful things. And when you were speaking, something that reminded me of was the topic of natural hair.
Mm,
And I think for me that I was when it comes to this idea of modeling, because within my family, I'm the only person, my immediate family that is, I'm the only person that's natural.
same here.
Oh, for real.
Hmm.
And it just when you were saying that, I could really relate to it in a natural hair context.
Like, I don't know if we can kind of go off tangent right now, but I 100% agree definitely in that context. Natural hair is one of those really tough topics because I understand why people feel the way that they do about their hair. I
Mm.
really do. We live in a world that literally tells black women that we are undesirable for looking
Mhm.
the way that we were born.
Mhm.
So I get why women feel like their hair is tough or difficult. I
Mhm.
understand all of that, and I genuinely empathize with women who struggle to like themselves as they are, because
Mm.
you have been literally picked apart your whole life. Why
Mhm.
would you like yourself? To be able to do
Mm.
that it takes a lot of courage, a lot
Mhm.
of bravery. It's actually not easy, and I stand with my sisters who are struggling with that, because it's
Mm.
not easy at all. You have to radically accept yourself
Mhm.
in a way that defies all expectations. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's
And
really hard.
sometimes it's an ongoing process.
Exactly.
It's an ongoing process.
Exactly.
Even for me as somebody who's been natural for like several years now, like over a decade, it's still even for me sometimes there are moments where I catch myself like slipping or
Me
I
too.
catch myself having those moments of not feeling so good
Yep.
or knowing that it's the societal standards to do a certain checklist of things and sometimes just wanting and I think sometimes it's okay to go the easier path sometimes, like
It's
the
okay.
yeah,
Like, it's
like
alright.
you
You can
don't
wear the
have to
wig.
be a brave soldier all the
Yeah.
time.
You don't.
Like I think that's when it comes to this idea of like courage. I'm a very, very courageous person,
Mhm.
but I pick and choose when I'm
When
courageous because sometimes when I'm courageous back to back, sometimes I'm like, I'm going to give myself a space to just
Yeah,
be
it
not
wasn't worth that fight.
courageous. Yeah. So
No,
I
that's
think
totally valid.
to be courageous, but to pick and choose when you want to apply that courage, especially if it impacts your safety and or otherwise.
100% agree.
Um, yeah, thank you so much. So we're
Hmm.
going to transition to the next section of our segment here. And so I'm curious, when it comes to community nutrition and lifestyle medicine, what are some common patterns that you've noticed about people that they might not realize affects their health?
So, most of my work in community nutrition and lifestyle medicine is centered around children. And
Hmm,
children, unfortunately, don't have a lot of agency in their lives. Their
that's
parents buy
true.
their food. Their parents are often responsible for even just feeding them in the first place.
That's
And
true.
every day of their life is determined by the adults around them. So I
Mm,
do a lot of like intervention research where we teach students about nutrition, physical activity, stress management, so on
mm-hmm,
and so forth. And then we see how well their knowledge has changed over time.
mm-hmm,
And I find that for most of the students, I wouldn't say all, but for a good amount of them, they tend to know what they're supposed to eat. They tend to
mm,
know, they may not know exactly how much fiber they're supposed to get on a daily basis. They may not know the specifics about what their
mm,
sugar intake should be, but they
mm-hmm,
are aware that a diet that is high in hypercaloric foods is not necessarily the best for their body. They
mm,
understand what it means to have a well balanced, nutritious meal. It's
yeah,
about being able to put that into practice,
mm-hmm,
given, you know, your parental constraints. Like if your parents don't buy those things or if they can't buy those things,
mm,
you're just limited. Like, so most of what I find that people struggle with is not even themselves, is the systems that they live underneath. Poverty
mm,
is like poverty is the biggest driver of obesity and unhealthy lifestyles in this country. Is there's
mm,
just nothing else. Like we can talk about
mm,
undereducation, definitely, sure. Poverty is the
mm.
biggest one. And I think that
Because you
that's
can get all the education, but if you literally cannot afford,
exactly, if you can't afford it or if you can't afford it consistently,
mm-hmm,
there's nothing we can tell you or that we can equip you with other than money that will
mm,
change your life. And I think
mm,
that's the biggest thing that my students that I work with struggle with. It just
mm.
literally access.
That's also making me think about like mental health as well, and
Hmm.
like the idea of generational trauma and how that impacts people, and how they show up and how much we teach. Because I've been reflecting a lot about stories. I've been reflecting a lot about, what is it called, folk tales,
Mm.
and reconnecting with folk tales and the stories of them. But along tangent to say how things are passed on generationally, like within our culture, folk tales and or just knowledge was passed orally.
Yeah,
And
fables. I love them.
me too. And I've been thinking a lot about, our culture and the parts that I want to pass on. I've always thought about that actually. The parts that I want to pass on, the parts that I don't want to pass on. And I realized that I forgot a lot of the stories that I grew up hearing. And I just always assumed that I would always remember them because they were such a
Yeah.
significantly beautiful part of my childhood. And there's been a deep sense of grief. Like I actually cried
Yeah.
when I came to that conclusion of like, oh my God, because I have young nephews and nieces, and sometimes I tell them stories. I'm going a bit off tangent, but I'm going to connect it back. Um, and I was speaking because I reached out to a couple of like Igbo group chats, like asking Igbo Instagrams, asking like, do you guys have a collection of like folktale stories? Like, I want something that's like in print that way I can like take a screenshot and like reread it to my kids. But something that helped me was I reached out in this particular group chat, and the man, he was saying how like he creates these like stories for his kids. He's a dad. Like he recreates an Igbo man as well. He
Mm.
recreates these stories for his children. And I kind of took that with me of now when I'm speaking to my nephews and my nieces, like I create my own story.
Yeah.
As opposed to feeling like I have to remember. Like I just randomly start saying something and a story carves out of it.
Yeah. You
And I'm
make your
like,
own traditions.
yeah, exactly. And I take like elements of like folktale, which is like the songs, having a song in it, having repetition
Yeah.
of certain words. And I'm just like, and these are, because at its core, the idea is for them to have like wholesome memories in the same way that I had
Yeah.
around like stories of an uncle and an auntie like sitting down and like telling you a story. And it's just like, ooh, like what are they going to say next, sort of thing. Um, but all that to say, when it comes to the idea of stories or like learned behavior and how that connects to our diet and our health long term, And even me in my health journey has been like reflecting on food as it relates to health and culture, etc. And in what ways was food passed on to me? In what ways did I see food play a role, such as like as a coping mechanism? What sort of foods were used to cope versus what sort of foods were not used
Mm,
to cope, and how has that played a role in my eating behaviors, a lack thereof? And that's something that I talk about with my clients as well, about their life context. So even in our culture, right, we're often told you have to finish the food on your plate.
yes.
And how does that then play a role?
In your eating habits as an adult. And it plays a
Yes.
really, really, really big role. I will say for myself, like my parents have all the Nigerian traits, but that one. My parents
Hmm.
never ever forced me to finish my food. If I
Hmm.
was done, then I was just finished. The good news is that for me, I had two brothers who would eat what I didn't want. So it wasn't really that big of a problem. My
Hmm.
mom also was willing to accommodate likes and dislikes. Like, so for
Hmm.
example, I personally don't like noodles. So if my
Hmm.
mom made Indomie for dinner, I didn't have to eat it. I could eat
Hmm.
something else. My
Hmm.
brother did not like beans, and if he didn't like what my mom made for dinner, he get a different meal. And
Hmm.
I didn't realize how uncommon that experience is. And so
Hmm.
as an adult, I don't eat anything I don't desire to eat. And I
Hmm.
offer that same autonomy to any child in my presence. You don't have to
Hmm.
finish this food if you don't want to. It's
Hmm.
actually okay. I want you to try it, take a couple bites. I want you to actually form an opinion on it based off of
Hmm.
what you've experienced, not just what you see with your eyes,
Hmm.
but what your taste buds are telling you. Yes,
Hmm.
but it's okay if you don't want anymore, and I'm happy to get you a different meal if you want. Because when once you teach children that, they don't feel the need to overeat as an adult. A lot
Hmm.
of us struggle with portion sizes because you were given abnormally large portion sizes when you were a child who didn't have any control over what you ate. Now
Hmm.
you're an adult, you do have control, but that muscle memory is hard to kick.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
it's very tough. And I don't really blame our parents for doing this. A lot of our African parents grew up in a time of scarcity, and food was not easy to get by.
and also another thing is, when you think about, like, back in the day, in order to do farm work, you needed
You
to
needed to
eat
eat,
large portions of
yes,
food in
to
order
be
to
able,
functional.
yes,
So in some ways, it's passed on of you need a lot of food, but in our
yes,
society, we're not doing as much like like I'm sitting
absolutely.
down talking to people. Oh, you're not doing as much like manual
You don't
labor.
require that much caloric intake. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's definitely true for my dad's side of the family. They're all farmers. I think my
Mm,
dad is like the first in his generation to go into like the sciences, the healthcare, as opposed to going into agriculture. And definitely
mm,
they were all like big eaters, and they had to be. Like, you're not
mm.
going to be in the fields for a whole day off of a Twinkie. That's not going to work. Like, puff puff, that's not going to cut it. Like, get some real meat.
Mhm.
Definitely. But
Some cassava.
exactly. But with my lifestyle, I do the same thing that you do. I sit down the majority of the day. I don't
Mhm.
need to take in as much food as maybe my grandfather might have, because my lifestyle doesn't require that. And
Mhm.
but in order for your children to learn to make those health habits, they do have to be taught it. And it can't
Mm.
just be, oh, I tell you what you should be eating.
I
They have to
show
see
you.
you do it too.
Yes.
And then you
Yes.
have to allow them to do it with you. And
Mhm.
it's hard, especially when your options are limited financially, or if
Mhm.
your lifestyle is limited by time. If you don't have
Mhm.
the time to really like get into nitty gritty of dietary behavior, dietary habits with your
Mhm.
kids, unfortunately, it can affect them in adulthood.
So you're in a really interesting space right now when it comes to balancing school, research, as well as like working. Has this season been teaching you about yourself? How do you figure out what to prioritize?
I have been learning about myself that I don't handle stress very well. I can't lie. Once even an iota of stress comes into my presence, I immediately crumble.
Mhm.
But in terms of how do I figure out what to prioritize, unfortunately, I tend to let panic make the decision for me.
Mhm.
Whatever priority causes the most significant emotional response
Mhm.
tends to be what I do first.
I think that's good. And I was going to push back and say, is it that you can't? Because being the first daughter, I'm like,
Yeah,
you
that's
know, like,
true.
so is
That's
it that
true.
you can't handle stress, or is it that you've come to a place where you're deciding not to overfunction anymore?
Yeah, yeah. I think for me it's that the stress now looks different, and it's
Mm,
unfamiliar stress. Like,
mm,
academic stress I'm used to, but
mm,
academic stress with this type of stakes is
mm,
unfamiliar territory for me, and it's
mm,
actually quite frightening. Like, it's like, oh, Like this will have, like, I think when you're in high school or even in undergrad,
Mm-hmm.
there is room to some extent to bounce back if you make a mistake. Like, I mean,
Mm.
ideally, no, you should not fail a class, but if you did, it's genuinely not the end of the world. Like, you
Mm.
can retake that class. You might have to go to summer school.
That is true. Whereas
Yeah,
in, especially like cohort grad
school.
school,
That's not the
yeah,
like you need a
that's
B and
true.
above. And for me, like getting the B and above is not really the hard part. It's
Mm.
really more of like not like doing the additional things that you have to do in addition to going to class. Like,
Mm.
unfortunately, with grad school, it's not just get your degree. You
Mm-hmm.
also have to network. You have to get internships, research experience, publications. It's all
Mm.
of those additional things and the stakes that come along with those things and how they will shape your future. That's where the
Mm.
stress comes in. Like,
Mm.
getting the A is probably the easier part. It's
Mm.
the other extracurriculars, quote unquote, that are not
Mm.
really extracurriculars. Like, they're optional, but if you don't do them, you will struggle after the
Mm.
fact. That is what makes it challenging.
So you prioritize based on if this is giving me a lot of stress, I'm going to take it out the way
Yeah,
so that way I can have relief and then focus on other
yeah.
things.
I will
Okay.
say that that's not necessarily the best method because
Mm.
unfortunately that means you're constantly being motivated by consequences. It's not good for
Mm.
your heart. I'm working on that. One day I'll find a real solution, a
We're
better
always
plan.
learning, we're
Yes.
always figuring it out as we go. And I think sometimes we have learned the lesson,
Mhm.
but we need to relearn it because it's different circumstances, different
Exactly.
stressors. But we might learn the same thing that a different circumstance taught us. But based on the circumstance, we don't realize that it would be the same message or the same lesson.
100%.
How do you personally stay motivated in a field that can feel slow when it comes to change?
Mm. This is especially true for public health. Public health is one of those fields, it's been, I mean, as old as time, but a
Mm,
lot of the public health workers now are close to retirement age, if
mm,
not about to retire. And they tend to be very set in their ways. They do things the way that
mm,
they like to do things, which I can understand. I mean, if it works, it works. I would keep
mm,
doing it too. But the reality is that the world is changing now, especially with AI technology. Like, things are changing rapidly. And also, there's a massive loss of trust in public health workers and in doctors as well.
mm,
And we do have to adapt the way that we reach people in order to,
mm,
send our message and actually have it stick.
mm,
And for me, how do I stay motivated when that change isn't happening the way that I want to?
mhm,
It's kind of just focusing on the small, minute things that do go your way. You
mm,
may not have influenced 100 people to make these lifestyle changes, but one person did
mm,
make it. And it might
mm,
feel like, okay, look, that's just one girl though. This is public health. You want like 100 people. Yeah. And it may not happen like that. It may not happen even in your lifetime. But I
mm,
think about all the people who came before me, not necessarily in public health, but just like in general,
mm,
who influence people in the smallest of ways. Even me, like there
mm,
are complete strangers that I've met like 10 years ago that had one conversation with me that
mm,
genuinely stuck with me, like till this
mm,
day. You know
mm,
what I mean? And so like that's kind of how I think about it. Like I even though public health is about the bigger picture, I
mhm,
try to focus on the small, small, small picture. Like
mm,
what one-on-one person interaction can I have that could
mm.
be meaningful for that person? And hopefully it goes well. Right?
Hopefully it does,
Yes.
as opposed to
It
the
does.
others.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you like this question. How do you personally define a full life right now as it relates to your womanhood?
How do you define a full life in terms I feel like for that, first of all, you have to decide what womanhood
In
means to
the
you.
terms of you yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does a full life as it relates to womanhood look like for Amarachi at this? Because you might evolve, people change
Yeah.
in this particular stage of life.
I would say for me at this stage in life,
Mm-hmm.
autonomy is definitely a big piece of it. Having some
Mm,
level or at least a good degree of control over where I go, what I do, who I talk to, who I spend
mm,
my time with.
mm,
Aside from autonomy, I would say just pure enjoyment. And not in the context of like clubbing and stuff, though if that's something you care about, 100% fine too. But just like baseline
mm.
childlike enjoyment.
Yes.
Play. Yeah.
You've mentioned this a couple of times. I want
Yeah.
you to expand on it. I think this is a really
Yes.
important topic.
I think that play is easily one of the most important things that anyone can do for themselves. When
Mm,
with children, little kids learn via play, usually parallel
mm-hmm,
play where like maybe they play with other kids. Sometimes they play just like side by side with other children. And I
Mhm.
feel like as kids, as adults, we know that play is very important for kids. So we
Mhm.
nurture that in children. We make, elementary school classrooms bright and colorful and pretty and interesting, visually interesting for the kids, stimulating. We
Mm.
make our TV shows like Dora, Diego, whatever it's called, and we make it so that the kids are like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's meant to be
Mhm.
fast, like Coco Melon,
Mm.
Bluey, like it's meant to be very like eye catching. But we do that because we understand the developmental stage that kids are in.
Mm.
I personally don't think that that should
Should end.
end.
Yes,
I
I
don't think that that
agree.
should end when you get to adulthood. It may not
Mm.
necessarily have to be Coco Melon for adults. It doesn't have to. I'm not gonna lie, I be watching Bluey. I be watching Bluey. I'm not even gonna hold you. I be watching it. Not gonna lie. But I still think that that same level of enticement should exist for adults.
Mm.
And that's where those third spaces come into the picture.
Mm.
Libraries,
Okay, bring it
yes,
back.
yes, absolutely. Libraries, I am a massive everybody please get a library card. You need that.
Mm.
Even if you don't use it, just get it so that we can, still get funding for the libraries because they're important. It
Mm.
will look different because we're bigger. We're not necessarily as fascinated by like, square pegs and circle holes, but we can still play and we should. And it just happens
Mm.
that play tends to overlap with exercise really, really, really well.
Mm.
So it's very convenient. So for me, tapping into childlike play is a really, really big part of my womanhood. When I was a kid, the way that my parents were is that they
Mhm.
really expected obedience. They
Mm.
expected like cookie cutter kids who just like did what they were told. And it didn't make a lot of room for just unbridled play. And
It's
I
true.
think that like for my womanhood and just adulthood in general, I need to
Mhm.
get back to that spirit of just freedom.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
harder when you're bogged down by responsibilities,
Mm.
but like I think that's the key to it all. Just the
Mm.
desire to just play.
I 100, 100, 1,000,000% agree with you. There was this video of this kid on Instagram, this little black boy. He talked about, like, I forgot the details, but he talked about like playing, and I just really, really resonated with it. And I feel like when we play is when we feel most alive, when we feel
Yeah.
most human. Like, I feel like the responsibilities of adulthood, especially if you have a lot of things. I was telling you about the many things I have going on off
Mhm.
camera, like, it can feel very like this is a checklist. I have to do this, I have to do
Yep.
that, I have
Yep.
to do that, I have to do that. There's a lot of doing and there's less time to be. And when you're playing, you're fully present. You're giving yourself permission to
Be.
be a human being. It's very humanizing in a
Yes.
way that check a series of checklists of things you have to do can feel very dehumanizing because it's very okay, I need to do this,
Yes.
did that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, you always hear that phrase, like, kids keep you young. And
Mm-hmm.
it's true. Like, when I hang out with, like, I have one friend who has a child. And whenever I hang out with her kids, I'm like, like, whoa. Like, it's like, why? We're running for like 2 hours straight. Like, no breaks. Like,
No
not even
breaks.
one break. But yeah, like the kids, they keep you active. They keep you moving, and they require you to think.
Mm,
As a young girl, I feel like I was kind of thrust into womanhood a lot earlier, but not in the
mm,
ways that were meaningful to me specifically. And now the ability to
mm,
kind of just play and be like unbridled is important to
mhm,
me as a woman. But then the last thing I would say is shaping my circle of friends, but
mm,
not in the way that a lot of people talk. I feel like a lot of times when you hear about people talking about like curating their friend group, is always like cutting people off. No, I want
mm,
to open the doors. Come on in,
mm,
friend. Hey, girl. Like, I
mm.
want to allow more people. Like, you have not, someone told me this, like, you have not met all the people that are going to love you.
I love that
I
quote.
love,
I love
every time
that
I feel it, I
quote.
just think, yeah. Like, I can feel the wind blowing in my hair, like, yeah, thanks. And so like I want to open that door for love and for
Mm,
community. And so
mm,
I've been doing a really, really, really good job this year, 2026 in
mhm,
particular, of building community, like hosting
mm,
gatherings with my friends. Someone say, hey, girl, you want to come here? I'm gonna go.
mm.
Yeah, I will
Saying
actually.
yes.
Yes, saying
Mm,
yes. And so that is also a really big part of my womanhood, like
mm,
allowing more opportunities for sisterhood, whether it's
mm,
organically, like I just met you at the grocery store, or
mm,
deliberately going to spaces where women gather and making
mm,
myself a part of that. Like I want to be where you guys are so
mm,
we can be like this,
mm,
one way or the other. We're gonna be friends.
mm.
Like I'll find a way. And every connection doesn't have to be besties. It's actually okay to have a friendship where it's like,
They're
you know,
different levels or
level.
different
Yes,
tiers.
I think
Yeah.
that's actually 100% okay, and I think it's
Mhm.
healthy actually to
Mhm.
have such a broad range of connection, and I wish
Mhm.
more people were open to that. It's
Mhm.
definitely hard and it has its challenges, but it's really enriching.
I was saying in an earlier episode how for me a really big part of my life is like my friendships with girls.
Yes.
I think a lot of my girl friendships has been really the center and foundational piece in a way that's been really, really helpful to my well-being. And so I do think that community element is really, really, really important. The question that we ask to wrap up every single one of our guests is, what is an unpopular lesson your journey of life has taught you?
Sometimes you're going to be the bad guy.
Mm.
I've learned this lesson like 3 weeks ago.
Honestly, me too.
Yeah, sometimes it's you. Sometimes it's not everybody else. Sometimes it's just you. And you have to find a way to work
Mm.
through that without sitting in shame and guilt for whatever it is that you did.
Mm.
And that's something that I struggle with. I tend to commiserate a lot. Like
Mm.
something bad will happen, and if it's my fault, I'm like, I'm a terrible person. At some point, buck up, babes. You
Mm.
got to move past that. You can
Mm.
acknowledge where you have gone wrong and you can accept the consequences of that, of whatever it is that you did. Like,
Mm.
you may not have that friendship anymore, you may not have that connection anymore.
Mhm.
It might just be your fault, but you can't stay there. You can't sit
Mm.
in that misery or in that shame and
Mm.
not be able to progress and move forward. But I think that's
Mm.
a lesson that a lot of people don't want to believe. Like, it might be you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Trauma Learns. We look forward to seeing you in future episodes. Thank
Yes.
you.